The USAID Safe Water project aims to improve water security in vulnerable communities in the Philippines. By 2024, this partnership will have realized the following changes. Water service providers are serving better more people through improved quality of water supply and sanitation services. Local governments and stakeholders together, planning and raising support for water supply and sanitation programs. By government and communities actively work together to monitor and manage watersheds, forests, and water resources for long-term sustainability. Committed private sector partners serve as economic stewards of water resources, and private financing institutions also invest in constructed assets that understand water together to monitor and manage watersheds, forests, inform and efficient water users. Claim the right for committed private sector partners serve decision-making stewards towards a water-secure future. Private financing institutions also invest in constructed assets that understand water together to monitor, manage watersheds, forests, inform and efficient water users. Claim the right for committed private sector participate decision-making stewards towards a water-secure future. Private financing institutions also invest in constructed assets that understand water together to monitor, manage watersheds, forests, inform and efficient water users. Claim the right for committed private sector participate decision-making stewards towards a water-secure future. Private financing institutions also invest in constructed assets that understand water together to manage watersheds, forests, inform and efficient water users. Claim the right for committed private sector participate decision-making stewards towards a water-secure future. Private financing institutions also invest in constructed assets that understand water together.
Year of crisis and uncertainty. Every ripple we create, where we focused on modernization for maximum efficiency and responsiveness. Our round-the-clock operations are supported with different platforms for seamless customer service. Manila Water's expansion creates an ocean of synergy, strength, and stability. We continue to develop infrastructure to ensure access to potable and reliable water supply, as well as wastewater services for the growing population. And our sustainability bond becomes the springboard of our collective future. All of this is tied together with the signing of the revised concession agreement water services for the growing population. Manila Water. And our sustainability bond create the ripples that evolve into the waves of the future.
Ang bubon sa tupad na niya sa pa nga may turugban. Nagamantinir na lang sa amon nga tubig nga bisan daw higko ang sa tupad niya kung kisa bala daw ang yan nga tubig gasulod sa may bubon. Di ginabutangan na lang namong chlorine para lang maputi ng tubig kag madula ang iyang tina.
Agos is the expression of the commitment of the Coca-Cola Foundation to water stewardship. We do this by bringing water to the communities that do not have water.
Ang pagambal nga may tubig ang adfing, interesado kami kami na mapati kasubong. Pagkatapos pag kami ari ng tubig
It's by bringing water to the communities that do not have water.
We believe there are infinite ways to make the world better. Infinite legacies. Infinite tomorrows to ask, what difference can we make today? The futures we design. The communities we raise. The culture we create. The planet we save. We believe that with Smart Infinity's dedicated support and limitless data, calls, and text, we hold the power to keep making the world better forever. It's simple. We believe impact is infinite.
QVO? Cubo?
It actually just stands for Kubo, as in the Bahay Kubo. And yes, we do have our very own Bahay Kubo in our office.
Just like the Bahay Kubo, we stand for Bayanihan or teamwork. Kubo is a place where the community can come together to help ideas flourish, showcase Filipino innovation, and build great companies.
Together.
Let's build
The Philippines.
Startup Community!
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Veronica Gabaldon. I'm the Executive Director of the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation. Happy to be your host for today. We will begin in a minute with a video flowing forward the Philippine Water Supply and Sanitation Master Plan of the National Economic and Development Authority. Let's all watch this.
The story of water and sanitation in the Philippines is largely unappreciated, and it is time to open our eyes to the reality of the situation.
Pagtuo namon habumba, paglaba, ligo, pagparigo, atabay kami nakuha. Kay makuri lalo na pag tag-araw, makuri haamon ito big.
Yung ginagamit po namin dito ngayon is yung kuya ko na nag-iigib sa truck. Yun po, yung kung napapansin niyo yung truck kanina diyan po yung nagso-supply ng tubig. Pag wala naman yon, pag sira, halimbawa sira, doon po sa yung tinatawag namin sa loy-soy. Yung iba naman dito sa puso.
Doon sa may tangke, iniinom na lang namin yun. Hindi pinapakuluan. Doon na kami kukuha ng panlaba, pansaing at saka pang-inom. Bali, kailangan talaga alas 4 ng madaling araw, gigising ka para makapag-igib.
Apart from water supply, sanitation is also an issue in both far-flung areas and communities in the metro.
Ang siarhan amon ugangan, ang simento, ang didalahan mayda, mayda, binubutangan handball, tuna la ngadto, waray simento ang sulodhan CR, ang didalahan bawbaw ang sinimento.
Dito po sa City Pag-asa, hindi po lahat ng bahay ay walang CR po. Yung iba sa damuhan, yung iba flying social na lang.
Lack of septic treatment and sewage collection facilities also poses a threat of contaminating water sources.
Ang safety tank namin, hindi pa namin yun napapasip-sip dahil hindi pa naman din puno.
Ang iniisip ko lang talaga na kung saan napupunta yung dumi sa Puso Negro namin, sa ilalim talaga ng lupa. Ayun yung iniisip ko dahil di naman siya as in naka-silyo yung ilalim. Hindi naka-flooring, lupa lang. Kaya as pag tag-araw, siguro sumisip-sip na lang siya doon, yung tubig. Tapos yung ibang dumi natutuyo na lang.
Further adding to the problem of inadequate water supply and sanitation services, the country is also experiencing water stress with overall water availability per capita per year of only 1,446 cubic meters, with only 1,700 cubic meters as the minimum threshold. The country is also projected to experience a high degree of water shortage in 2040, assuming a business-as-usual scenario continues.
Before we begin, we would like to get to know our audience a little better. So we will be flashing here now a series of questions for you on Zoom. It should be seen on your screen now. Would be happy to know which sector you belong and where you are located in this rainy afternoon. Wow. Thank you for responding. We see that we have a lot of viewers, participants from the private sector, from our partners from the local government, and also from the water and sanitation services. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We also have a question here. If you've already applied in the Philippine Water Challenge, we have a lot of respondents saying not yet, but I am very sure that at the end of this webinar, you will go ahead and apply us already. You will know more about this today. Thank you for those in Visayas and Mindanao for joining us this afternoon. And we also have joiners from outside of the country. Thank you. And for the concepts that you are interested in, you will hear more about that. Very, very fit. Technological solutions to water problems. Very good. Okay, so I think we're about to end our call. So thank you very much everyone for participating. So in an effort to draw attention to water crisis, the Philippine Water Challenge aims to bring together new ideas to accelerate innovation in the water and sanitation sector. Today's webinar will be divided into two parts. First is a panel discussion where 4 organizations will provide insights on how innovations can be a tool to address the current challenges we face in the water and sanitation sector. The second part will be a presentation of current solutions that could inspire innovators and entrepreneurs to scale and develop their current projects. And now, to officially welcome us, may we hear from the President of the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, Mr. Butch Mayley, to be followed by a quick video on the Philippine Water Challenge. Over to you, Butch.
Thanks, Veronica. If we could do one thing to improve the quality of life for Filipinos, it would be to provide clean, potable water to every family. That one act would save lives and transform the destinies of many. For too long, millions of our countrymen have had no access to running water or sanitary sewage disposal. As you saw from the videos, life as we know it is inconceivable without water. That is why the Philippine Water Challenge is so important. Innovation is one way to change the future and lift people up. We have a great lineup of experts and entrepreneurs with creative water solutions ready to show us how to go forward. I'd like to thank USAID, Maynilad, Manila Water, the Israeli Embassy, and other sponsors of this project, along with the hardworking PDRF team. Let us make life better for Filipinos. Let us look forward to the day when everyone can live their lives in safety and dignity. When clean, wholesome running water is a right that every Filipino can expect and rely on. Thank you all for joining us today.
Water. It seems like a limitless resource. But did you know that 1 in every 10 Filipinos lacks access to safe drinking water? 1 in every 5 water utilities provides piped water supply. 1 in every 25 Filipinos practice open defecation, and 23 of 25 Filipinos households do not have access to sewerage systems. But did you know that 1 in every 10 Filipinos lacks access to safe drinking water? The Philippine Water Challenge by USAID, PDRF, Manila Water, and Maynilad. We're looking for people or organizations who can address the biggest challenges our country has with water and sanitation. If you have a working solution to these problems but need support to improve it and upscale its implementation, this is the platform for you. The winners will each get a cash prize and the coaching of experts from these organizations to enhance your solution. How cool is that? With the Philippine Water Challenge, you hold the key to innovative solutions towards bringing Filipinos better access to clean and safe water and sanitation. Sign up at pdrf.org/Philippine Water Challenge and let us help you expand your solutions to 1 Filipino household at a time.
Thank you, Butch. Thank you for setting the tone for this afternoon's event. Now let's dive deep into the conversation of finding or scaling solutions to address water and sanitation challenges in the Philippines. Joining us this afternoon is Mr. Ramon Dondi Alikpala, CEO of Future Water Asia, to moderate this session. Future Water Asia is an advisory firm dedicated to assisting private sector companies engaged in the water sector. The floor is yours, Dondi.
Maraming salamat, Veron, and good afternoon to everybody. We have an exciting and really interesting afternoon ahead. I think we're broken it into 2 sessions. The first part will give us a broad overview of what's happening in the Philippine water and sanitation sector, and then the second part is I think identifying some solutions to help address these issues. So let's get to it. Our first speaker is Christopher Ilagan. He's the chairperson of the Philippine Water Partnership. Chris is the Corporate Affairs Director of Cargill Philippines, where he provides strategic leadership on corporate communications, government relations, corporate responsibility, sustainable development, and branding practice areas. He has maintained a personal advocacy on water sustainability and governance over the years, which took root when he first worked with Manila Water. He now chairs the Philippine Water Partnership, an NGO dedicated to the advancement of integrated water resources management in the country. He's also vice chairperson of the Movement for Water Security, a local private sector-led movement advocating for better sustainable management and development of the country's water resources. Chris, looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Thanks, Dondi. What a great introduction. I understand in 5 minutes, I have 20 slides, so that's 15 seconds per slide. But if I can just quickly, thank you. Thank you so much for pulling that out. My pleasure again to be here, and thank you for the invitation. I will be giving a quick overview of the Philippine water sector. If we can move on to the next slide. Perhaps most of you already know this, and compliments to NWRB for sharing this with us, right? The world's fresh water constitutes only 0.775% of Earth's water. When you look at us, we say we're a blue planet. But obviously, the amount of fresh water in that blue planet is highly limited. And as you can see here, only 0.752% is groundwater, and 0.023% are what we call the surface water sources. Next slide, please. Of course, we want to focus on the Philippines, so zeroing in on the country's water resources availability. The country has about 146 billion cubic meters per year of available water, renewable water. Based on NWRB statistics, around 68% are allocated for consumptive use for different purposes based on the water permit issued. And we will get a good sense of that breakdown in a following slide. Next slide, please. Speaking of water resources availability, there is a certain indicator, the per capita water availability, that we normally draw our attention to. Basically, this is the amount of available fresh water per person. And as you can see in the chart on the right, these water drops, since 1995, obviously, the amount of water that we have doesn't change, whereas our population and the actual consumption per person changes over time. And as you can see in 2020, the latest estimate is we're now at about 1,300 cubic meters per capita. What's relevant about that? At 1,700 cubic meters per capita, an area that has that sort of indicator is considered already water stressed. When you approach closer to 1,000, once you reach 1,000, anything below that is already considered a water scarce environment. Interestingly enough, NWRB again expects a 38% drop in water availability over the next 25 years. That brings us down to about 800 cubic meters per capita. It really is a dire situation and calls for us to be able to any more efficiently use is already considered a water scarce environment. Next slide, please. Now, as I mentioned, sorry, if you can just click twice. Just really quick, share you some statistics on surface water allocation by source. NWRB has issued permits for about 95% are surface water sources, about 5% from groundwater, and 0.002% is rainwater. On the users of water, the consumptive users, sorry, if you can just press again one more time, all right. As you can see, about 2/3 of water allocated by NWRB is for irrigation, agriculture, followed by 20% for industrial. Domestic municipal is at about 7.668%. The rest are others, And as you can see, therefore, in terms of the heaviest users in society, agriculture does take the largest share. And when you include non-consumptive sources, uses, that would include hydropower. And that's why it's number one, but it is not consumed. So moving on, we now start moving on to a little bit of the issues. As a country, we run ourselves according to political administrative boundaries. The reality is water moves through the water cycle on its own terms, right? And this is largely along hydrological boundaries. And obviously there is no overlap. There is no, the overlap between political boundaries and water resource, our basins, our river basins, do not overlap. The thing with water though, you do have to manage that according to the hydrological boundaries, from ridge to reef. Next slide, please. Touching on just some other data statistics, it's also, I guess, the point of this slide, although it's a little dated. This is from a 2005 study. Just comes to show that the water deficit, right, or the undersupply of water is actually it's spread out geographically. It's not equally felt across the entire country, And in this case, you can see the deficits are in 2, 3, 4 regions, and region 7, You have an excess, a big excess in region 10. Next slide, please. Now, so now zeroing in on the big issues, Big issue number one is really the larger demand than there is available supply. And that obviously leads to the effect of scarcity, you know. And when we try to figure out what are the causes of that, at a top level, you're talking here about population growth and economic development, climate change, groundwater over abstraction, pollution, forest denudation, and sorry, I can't see the bottom part, no. But as you can see, there are many factors behind why this is the case, no. And we do experience this quite sharply, especially during our summer months, no. And if you look at the maps on the right, you'll see that again there are certain areas that are already considered water stressed, and then those groundwater stressed areas have been highlighted in the map. Next slide, please. Of course, during rainy season, as we're experiencing now, it may be raining in your part. If it was just a few minutes ago for me. When you have too much water, right, you find yourself in a flood situation. And again, some of the major causes behind this, again, it's the same thing. It's climate change, forest denudation, institutional legal water resource management framework. Of course, the overdevelopment, the runoff tends to increase. When you start concreting, it comes with development. All of these are further reasons why we experience more floods and I guess you can say more negatively impactful floods. Next slide. Right now, as you saw earlier, climate change obviously is exacerbating the situation during drought situations, during flood situations, right? And I guess I don't need to go through this slide. We already know that as climate change worsens, the impacts are going to be felt more sharply, probably more often as well over the coming years. Next slide, please. Zeroing in on other issues related, and this will get us closer to the water supply and sanitation sector, right? Water quality is a major issue. Again, some of these numbers are a little outdated, but just to give you a sense, this just shows to you the impact of pollution and the impact that has on our very limited water supplies, our natural water supplies available. We also see that it has a direct cost. Again, this is dated early 2000s, 67 billion a year cost of pollution. We also know that with pollution comes health. This just shows to you the 31% the impact of pollution and the impact that has on our very limited water supply. An issue, and this is an issue close to the heart of Philippine Water Partnership, is the institutional fragmentation. One of our key advocacy areas has always been around reforming the water sector, and we have over 30 agencies basically governing the water sector. And when you have that many agencies involved, obviously there are going to be overlaps, there are going to be duplications. Most likely there are gaps, and the lack of coordination leads you to a situation that you're unable to efficiently and effectively manage the same resource you're all being asked to govern. No? Next slide. Issues around water supply and sanitation. Butch talked about it a bit earlier. Some of the videos talked about this a little earlier, right? We heard that 1 in 10 don't have access to clean potable water. Right, sanitation. It's sanitation. When we say sanitation, just access to a basic toilet, right? Not everyone even has that access, right? We still have. It says here, this is 2018, but 4.3 million still openly defecate, right? And as you can see, we certainly still have a way to go in order for us to be able to achieve our 2030 SDGs. Next slide, please. Right, I mean, a growing area of concern. No? Before, the issue was largely around how do we ensure water supply for households, because it's a basic right. People need it to survive, but we know that that's all just part of us. After you use water, it does have to be properly treated. No? If not, you're going to have sanitation issues, and that's what the food waterborne diseases here show. No, I'm glad to see though that more and more concern is being raised and awareness is growing around the need for improved sanitation and wastewater treatment of the water we use. Next slide, please. Again, I mean, I talked about institutional fragmentation from a governance and policy standpoint. There are 27,374 water service providers based on the Listahang Tubig website, no? And that's probably understated. There are so many players in the water sector. There is unfortunately a fragmented regulation of this, no? Different standards, different ways of pricing, right? And it does create a situation where you are unable to streamline that regulation that is geared towards ensuring that we are improving both access, right, and service quality of our water and wastewater services. Next slide, please. Another issue in the sector obviously has to do with funding, no? People are oftentimes willing to pay for water, but are unwilling to pay for wastewater services. We know that they're all part of the same water cycle. We also know that wastewater costs 2 times more, no? And as you can see, that kind of explains why sanitation has almost double the amount of costs required, no? Versus water supply. The 1 trillion pesos that's mentioned in this slide is basically what was estimated by NEDA in its study to achieve the universal access targets on water and sanitation, no? But that's just basic access. It's got nothing to do with building for resiliency, building for sustainability. It's just pure getting access to people. So that 1 trillion again is also understated. Next slide, please. Well, I guess in keeping with my, our organization's thrust, just a quick point here on integrated water resource management framework. It is something that we are pushing as one of many solutions that are needed for the water sector today. IWRM is all about making sure that we take a multi-stakeholder participatory approach based on hydrological boundaries or river basins in order to manage our water resources, and making sure that in the process of deciding how we're going to manage those water resources, it is multi-stakeholder participatory in its approach to managing this. Next slide, please. I mean, this is basically what gets integrated under the IWRM framework. Basically, it's a ridge to reef concept. Next slide, please. Right now, some ongoing initiatives. I mean, just on the policy side, right? We are starting to see a bit more movement of late to reform the water sector, to streamline its governance, to streamline its regulation, and we think that's the right direction. And for the first time ever, our Department of Water Resources bill, which has been languishing in Congress for now over 2.5 decades, right, has actually passed committee just recently. And although it's very late in the administration and there are doubts as to whether that will actually get passed, we imagine that it's a good start, because hopefully when we do refile next Congress, if it doesn't get passed this time around, it's less work at the committee level for a fast track approval moving forward. As you can see here, there are a number of things moving along, and these are obviously a number of initiatives that Philippine Water Partnership supports as well. Next slide, please. And I know that this is all about innovation. So let me just quickly rattle through this list now, go through this list. Where can innovation matter, right? Integrated water resource management in terms of its implementation. Science-based decision support systems. Again, water has its own, is dictated by nature and its flow, right? And nature needs to be understood with a scientific lens, and decision-making, water allocation should be based on science. Of course, finance and investment modalities, as well as economic regulation. Innovation can play a big role there. On water demand, you'll hear this probably later from Frankie, right? But non-revenue water reduction. Of course, we talk about efficient water use in households and industry. We also talk about innovative ways to change behavior of water users. On water supply, it's large-scale projects, technologies, right? Surface water solutions, small-scale projects, technologies for remote areas, right? And then on environmental and health impacts, municipal compact wastewater treatment solutions. We know we don't have so much space in our cities more and more these days. community household wastewater treatment. Of course, again, the behavior, sorry, I can't see it anymore. And climate change resilient solutions and energy efficiency. So I've rattled out quite a bit. We can have a bit more during the Q&A, but that ends my presentation for now, and I'm looking forward to the dialogue later. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. You know, some of the slides you presented were slides that I prepared 18 years ago. I think it's really time to move the water's narration forward. So Chris mentioned that there's very little willingness to pay for sanitation, which makes the job of our next speaker difficult. Our next speaker is Elmira Bakatan. She's a WASH specialist of UNICEF. She's a public health practitioner, and she has over 23 years of experience designing and implementing community-based development programs, advocacy, and policy research. She has been with the UNICEF since 2016, supporting DOH implement the Philippines approach to sustainable sanitation. She has managed humanitarian response programs addressing emergency needs on water, sanitation, livelihood, and shelter in conflict and disaster-affected areas. And prior to UNICEF, she was with Oxfam in building program capacity on public health promotions in 10 Asian countries. Apart from being a registered medical technologist, Mira also has a graduate degree in public management. So, Elmira, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the organizers for inviting us here today. So for this presentation, we will be looking at the scale of the problem on sanitation globally and in the Philippines, its impact on our children and the economy, and finish off with challenges on sanitation programming and what has been done so far. So on the next slide, let me start off by saying that really in the world, none of the regions is on track to achieve universal access to safely managed sanitation services by 2030. Actually, only 8 countries are on track to reach universal coverage, and all of which are from high-income countries. What does it take then to achieve the 2030 SDG target? As you will see on the next slide, it will require a 4-fold increase in current rates of progress and 7 times more for least developed countries to achieve universal access to safely managed services. That's the dark green line that you will see on your screen. But aside from meeting safely managed sanitation services, one of the SDG targets is also to end open defecation practice, which you will see on the next slide. Based on available data in the Southeast Asian region, the Philippines is one of the 2 countries, together with Myanmar, whose progress is actually too slow and will not likely achieve open defecation by 2030. That is if we don't accelerate our progress and do more than what we're doing right now. So we're actually behind countries like Cambodia, Laos, Indonesia, and Vietnam. On the next slide, if we are delayed with achieving OD-free, the same can be said in terms of closing our gap in achieving basic sanitation service. We are still off track to achieve 100% of households using basic sanitation services. And while 80% of the Filipinos, as you will see on the next slide, have basic sanitation service at the national level, there are significant inequities that we have observed. Rural areas tend to have higher open defecation practice and use of unimproved toilets, which is at 9% compared to urban areas at 4%. Of all regions, BARM or ARM has the highest open defecation practice, while NCR only has 0.2%. So there's still some of us doing OD based on the 2017 data. The same data in 2017 also showed that the gap between the poorest and the richest population is actually 45% for those with access to basic sanitation. So that's a big gap between the poor and the richest families. Next slide, please. And if we are to unpack further and correlate regional sanitation data with soil-transmitted helminthiasis or intestinal worm infections and stunting among children, the urgency for addressing poor sanitation is nothing but an imperative, really. Regions like BARM, Western Visayas, Bicol, Central Visayas, and Zamboanga Peninsula are the top 5 regions with highest open defecation rates and are the same regions belonging in the top regions with high stunting rates. So stunting rates in the Philippines is at 33.4% in 2015. And the latest figures in 2018 is actually at 30%. Still high considering who our neighbors are in this band, as you will see in the next few slides. All right. So in here, if this is not really simply a fluke. Based on the analysis of 2015 nutrition survey data, stunted children are more likely to live in households with suboptimal household water, sanitation, and environments. That means, concretely, based on their analysis, about 3.5% more likely that stunted children are living in households without proper toilets, safe drinking water, and dirty environments. And to prove the point further, on the next slide, stunting is higher where access to improved sanitation is low. We can see here a correlation of the data from across the world, which tells the same story, really. So stunting is determined as having a height which falls below the median height for age, is a sign of chronic malnutrition. That means paulit-ulit na pagkagutom or kakulangan ng sapat na nutrisyon sa mahabang panahon. So imagine that. Although linked to poor nutritional intake, stunting is also linked to a range of compounding factors, which includes the occurrence of infectious diseases, childhood diarrhea, and poor sanitation and hygiene. So in this chart, you will see that there's a negative correlation. The rates of childhood stunting are typically higher in countries with lower access to improved sanitation facilities. You will see on the upper left side of the chart where you have higher stunting rates in countries that have really low improved sanitation facilities. So on the next slide, if we continue to fail in addressing this, the economic cost is really staggering. We are losing $4.5 billion per year due to undernourished children and another $1.5 billion per year due to poor sanitation. And that figure, the $1.5 billion, or translated in pesos, as you will see on the next slide, it's actually 72% of that is due to health impact of poor sanitation. But if we do help households to invest in improved toilets with safe excreta management, it reduces the risk for diarrheal diseases by as much as 69%. And the benefits of sanitation really far outweighs the cost of providing the service itself by 7 times more if we eliminate open defecation alone. So what do we do then? What's keeping us from addressing this challenge? Next slide, please. So back in 2012 or 2013, UNICEF commissioned 2 researchers to understand the challenges in achieving universal access to sanitation in the country. And just to cite a few key things from these research, they recommended that we must have a local program model of success, that one that is successfully implemented in the entire municipality and not just in 1 or 2 barangays. This is to achieve scale, but also to benefit from a saturation effect as social norms change within the entire range of contexts in that municipality. There also have to be an LGU benchmarking system that follows the government sanitation targets and also provides media attention and prestige to the leaders of any high-performing local governments. In that way, we encourage more LCEs, more local chief executives to do the same. We need to improve on our monitoring capacity with specific efforts made to develop incentive systems that recognize and promote sanitation achievements and efforts made by the sanitation inspectors and other LGU staff. We also need to improve our targeting and use of sanitation subsidies and financing. And in fact, use different programming elements to respond to the needs and priorities of different population. So we need to do away with a one toilet design fits all program. Oftentimes, we see challenging situations in just one municipality alone. You may have rocky terrains, coastal communities, or high water table areas or waterlogged areas, or even space constraints to begin with. So our designs need to be able to adapt to those situations and also to the resources that's available for the households and in the community. On the next slide, I'll be sharing with you a few more points on the demand and supply research. And what we found is that the drivers of investing in sanitation is not really health, but rather cleanliness, pride, safety, the indication of their moving up in their social class, child's welfare, definitely. And among the key barriers in supply has been the perceived high cost. Not that they can't pay for it or they wouldn't want to pay for it. It's the absence of financing or credit mechanism for toilets for our households who would otherwise not have the same credit facilities as the rest of us have. And the lack of suppliers offering a complete or a wide-ranging set of sanitation solutions for various conditions. And so what have we done so far? On the next slide, back in 2019, with the support from UNICEF, World Bank, WHO, the Department of Health issued the Philippine Approach to Sustainable Sanitation, or FATS, which is actually both a sanitation programming approach and a monitoring framework, which attempts to combine the recommendations from the two research and support, in effect, the operationalization of the national policy on sustainable sanitation, and thereby, through the years, progressively achieve our SDG targets on sanitation. So what are our targets in this FATS policy? Could you please kind of click a few more? Probably, yeah, there. So achieving ZOD Philippines is by 2025, basic sanitation level by 2028, which means not only household sanitation, but also ensuring sanitation facilities in schools, health facilities, and other public institutions and spaces. So wherever they go, there has to be a functioning toilet. And by 2030, we're a bit more practical here, at least have over 60% of the barangays certified with sustainable water and sanitation services. And so how do we do that? How do we get there? So for each LGU that UNICEF has been working with, we assess where the weaknesses are and address them based on the following FATS pillars, whether it's the enabling environment, the demand creation is weak, the need for strengthening the supply and services, and and definitely mainstreaming DRR and resilience and strengthening the communication between stakeholders and the communities. For far too long, we've had so many policies already in place, but none of our households actually know about it. And currently, we are piloting sanitation financing with water.org and looking at starting a blended financing with output-based aid, especially useful in the light of the increased revenues that will be flowing into the local government coffers, in addition to, hopefully, the implementation of the Growth Equity Fund. So since 2020, the DOH has started to recognize LGUs meeting the different grades here in FATS. And in 2019, in fact, we've seen 22% of the barangays are already ZOD certified. And we are hopeful that there is more to come in the coming years. And most especially if we get more players from the development, academia, and the private sector helping out and making a contribution however which way. So I think that's the last of my slide. That ends my presentation. And thank you and good afternoon to you all.
Thank you, Elmira. I had actually no idea that there was a correlation between sanitation and stunting.
The same
So,
with me.
Great.
yeah. So we learned something new. Okay, our
Yeah.
next speaker is a veteran in the water sector, Francisco Arellano. Frankie has dedicated more than 40 years of his professional career addressing concerns on environment and natural resource conservation. His expertise in the water industry spans planning, designing waterworks and sewerage systems for Metro Manila, research and privatization of water and sewerage services. And Frankie has received global and national recognitions for his expertise, such as the WHO Outstanding Contribution to Water Quality and Leadership, and the Philippine Regulatory Commission Outstanding Chemical Engineer for 2016, to name a few. Frankie, I understand you're also going to be awarded a Distinguished Alumni of University of the Philippines very soon. So congratulations. An accredited APEC engineer and environmental auditor, Frankie is also a green building practitioner under the Philippine Green Building Council and a WHO Water Safety Plan trainer. He's also an assessor and advisor for that program. So Frankie, we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Dodi, for that kind remarks. Do I have my video?
It's coming on.
By the way, as have been mentioned by Don D, I have more than 4 decades of experience in the water utilities and sanitation and sewerage. By now, we should be talking about water redundancy and water security. But we're not yet there. We're still there are a lot of gaps.
Coming on.
Even most of the cities in the Philippines are not 100% as they have 100% accessibility to water, sewerage, and sanitation. Much the less, though, we all know that the Philippines is well blessed with water. Almost 1,800 centimeters per annually. But these are water which is defies location and time. So in short, what we lack is facilities to store this water. Coming to it, we have the COVID-19 right now, and we all know that the frequent and proper hand washing is the most basic frontline defense that we have into the spread of COVID-19. And yet we realize that, like Ma'am Almira was saying, I don't like to become a bearer of bad news, but I don't think they will be able to achieve these targets on sanitation because most of the fundings will be made available to food, to employment, and the other one is like the local government is dealing mostly with the so-called ayuda. Now, what are the barriers for water supply and sanitation right now? Can you go back to the these are the challenges. The supply varies in time and space, so they are not equally distributed in our islands. The source is actually vulnerable to climate changes, not only the supply, but also the quality. And as I said, there is the recent COVID-19, which will defer all activities, all investments for to achieve the UN sanitation goals for UN Sustainable Goals number 6. Because as I said, most of the investments will go towards this problem on COVID-19. Then loss of service coverage for water, sewerage, and sanitation, both in the rural, not only in the rural areas, but also in the urban centers. Now we have the changes in water supply, the changes in the water availability will also have some changes in water supply. And then we have the demand would be more, especially for wastewater as well as for water now is site-based, nearer to where the recipient will be. Like for example, for Laguna Lake, we found it better to get water around the areas of Laguna Lake for lesser transmission investment as well as transmission operation cost. But the problem is, we know that the lake is the quality of the lake is very fluid. It changes every day, every hour, even every minute. That's one of the basic challenge in using brackish water. We are looking now at Manila Bay as a potential source of water. And then, as I said, most of the investments would go to food and the employment sector as we transform into the new normal. And then there would be, as I said, changes in the local water. Can we have the next slide, please? And the challenge for the resilience of water and sanitation system resulting from global warming, we all know that. Increasing the number of adverse impacts on water due to health issues as discussed by Ma'am Almira. But I did not know that although it's not lack of the sanitation facilities, that stunts the growth. She was mentioning the whole gamut of sanitation. Okay? And then rapid urbanization, because we're able to supply the water, but we could not meet the demand because of the increasing demand as you go per year by year, the demand increases because of population. And then the emergence of mega cities like Cebu, Davao, the aging infrastructure, some of the infrastructure are even the sewer infrastructure that we have, some of them we had them during the American times. In fact, we are the first country in Asia which would have a sewerage work in 1905, much earlier than Tokyo. So we have the oldest, but then we can brag about those things. But right now, even Bangladesh has higher more coverage on sewerage than the Philippines. Their investment cost recovery, very low cost recovery for sewerage and sanitation, as well as the cost structure as it has been said, the cost for sewerage is much greater than the water supply because you need the distribution lines, you need treatment plants, and you need a lot to be able to put your treatment facilities. Next slide, please. We're trying to address the gaps, like for example, areas wherein there are no water and how we can provide them with water. Like for example, site-specific, we try to put deep wells in some areas where we can address the short supply of water, and then provide redundancy for water security. That is why we're trying to do it right now. We're trying to build you would hear that there is a Kaliwa Dam. There is now the other dam, the Wawa Dam, which is being commissioned right now, all in the name of redundancy, so that we will be able to supply water even at times when water scarcity comes in. Then automation to increase our efficiency. Yes, thank you for reminding us of our non-revenue water. We have not yet achieved the goal for non-revenue water as far as Maynilad is concerned. Communication, we have to tell the people how to use water wisely so that they will be able to save the water, not for themselves, but for the other users. On the other hand, what we can do is we have more monitoring devices for water quality. This is one of the problems and one of the challenges, even in the local water districts. Some of their water quality are being sent to Manila because they don't have facilities to test heavy metals, to test viruses, and these are sent. And before the results come in, the water has been consumed already. Now, this is the so-called for informal settlers, we try to use the use of aguador or water tenders as much as possible. It's barangay or smaller units. People can group together and get a public faucet, although we want to get out of this public faucet. But as I told you, how can you provide, like for example, water those on the stilts in Manila Bay? Where will you lay your pipelines? So the pipelines will be hanging together with the stilts on the houses. Now we can also use a small water service provider, like for example, in some areas they will group together and apply as one account, and they will do their own administration of selling and collecting for the facilities, and they will pay Maynilad for the water that's being consumed by that small water service provider. It could be a private one, or it could be informal cooperatives. Now we have another model which was used in Muntinlupa. There is a they cannot come up with a private cooperative. There is a NGO manning the system for them. As I said, there will be more community-based undertakings. That is how we address the matter for the poor. Next. I cannot, low premium given to sanitation and sewerage, as this has already been mentioned. Toilet facilities, in fact, how can you provide sewerage and sanitation when they have no toilets? I've seen for myself how they open defecate, and then you can give them toilets, but how could you collect the wastewater? How could you collect the fecal matter, no? And currently, no family budget is been allocated for wastewater management. In fact, if you could see that their water supply, they're thinking it only on the use of water, but not exactly on how much they're willing to pay for wastewater management. And of course, there is low internal rate of return. Ang taas ng investment, very, very low ang internal return. And then there is a cultural mindset. I don't know if Almira has noticed it. Some areas, it's hard to teach them how to use our Western type of toilet because they have been used to squatting. Perhaps this is another one which not only most Asian countries would be more comfortable to squatting, and the Western toilets that we're using, they don't want to adapt it. I have seen a lot of cases where people don't want to use the Western toilet. And again, the terrain, when solving wastewater facilities, we have a problem on the land acquisition because the area that we have is most of the area that is near the shore, near the river, because you have to realize that when you do sewerage, the flow is by gravity. As much as possible, you have to prevent pumping to lessen the cost. Next slide, please. We could use the Baseco Maynilad type model for sanitation. A social entrepreneur provided the toilets under the Bill Gates, Melissa Gates Foundation. I don't know if you saw the video in the YouTube on the toilet that Bill Gates is developing. So they donated the toilets to Baseco, and then the sewer lines and septic tanks were built by the City of Manila, and the Maynilad provided the sludging services. Kasi we cannot come up with big septic tanks. So we have to have more frequent the sludging services to be able to serve this Baseco. I don't know if you're familiar with Baseco. We have a number of informal settlers in Baseco, and that is facing Manila Bay. And then we have communal toilets run by barangays, and there are potential for gas recovery. I've seen this for myself, where this gas is recovered and sold to residents, and most of the models are in China and Africa. Next slide, please. Challenges in innovation. Water utilities do not have organic research vision. It is done through group effort, like a contest or a marketplace among the employees in the company. It's a once a year undertaking, because it's not part of the what you call this plantilla of the water district is to have an organic research exhibition. And then there will always be a question of proprietary use and the patent to be applied. Who owns the patent? The employee themselves or the company? That is one big problem that we have to resolve. And most of them are dependent on startups and contests conducted by private entities. I'll show you a very short. Can you show them the slides? Is it possible to show the slide that I prepared? Can you move on? Next. Can you play it? No. Can you play the slides? Ways to sustainability. Well, in that slides, what is given is that you have a family, then the family with faster. Slides na lang. No, this is where open defecation in Metro Manila. You could see them. Next. Then as I said that this is how the sewage sanitation looks. These are the residents, and this will be the regular sanitation facilities, and they will go have septic tanks. The septic tanks will be collected, and then from be collected, and the wastewater will be used for constructed wetlands like oxidation pond, and the residue can be used as a fertilizer or biofertilizer, which can be used by the farmers, and the farmers now can help some community which would solve the growing agricultural needs of the community. This is what we can say as a circular economy, and it is an inclusive. So this is an inclusive, very in all activities you could. Next, can you do next, the Modlet? This is what I'm saying, and cooperation, collaboration to achieve this. And then we have models for pair production of construction of the toilet facilities. Meron ka tinatawag na Modlet. We propose kasi yan to use the recycled resin to produce this type of toilets. Although I know it's too heavy. And we decided, we already come up with a business model for this, on how these toilets could be produced. And then we also have a model on how we can convert the fecal matter, we convert it into fertilizer. That's why we said from table to table. This fertilizer can be used for your for plant propagation. I think that's all. That's all.
Right.
That's all.
Frankie, thank you very much. I could sense the frustration of Frankie early on, and not because his video didn't play right away, but because he said after 4 decades, the conversation should have already advanced, diba? You know, we had one of the first desal systems in Shangri-La in Southeast Asia. The people from Singapore said they'd come here to learn about it. We had the water code much earlier than other countries. And like Frankie also mentioned that we had sewer systems over 100 years ago. I think in Zamboanga we had sewer. So we'd like to pose some questions. We don't have much time, so I'll just try to pose one question per person. Frankie, my question, I'll just start with you. This fellow Amir Peleg of Takadu, it's a water company, said when it comes to operational changes, the water industry is known to be very conservative, slow, and risk averse. And the reluctance partly stems from the non-competitive nature of the water industry, among other factors. And too often, utilities only address shortages when a crisis hits. So my question is, do you agree with that? And how do we overcome that? And how do we move the conversation forward?
It's a yes or it's a no. Because the water utilities are highly regulated. That's why even our rate of returns is regulated. You can only spend as much, and also because I'm talking as a concessionaire. So if it's highly regulated, your tariff must the planning is water we have to plan for up to 20 to 30 years. but you cannot get your revenues. You cannot get your revenues immediately. It takes a long gestation period for you to be able to recover the investments.
So Frankie, when now we're talking about innovation, is the water sector or the water utilities are they open to innovation? Because it's been
Yes, we
very,
are
very
very open
slow.
to innovation.
Okay.
But most of the innovative solutions that is being offered to us would be mostly from household water, individual household water, not for a big mega facility water supply system. Because that will entail a different approach. Right now, our water supply system are centralized.
Right. So you're saying the innovations are for the household, but not for the utility level? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, at the household level or community base, I could say.
Well, like smart meters, I mean, it's starting to come in. There's people are open already to that. Okay, Elmira, I have a very, very basic question for you on sanitation. You know, I talk to a lot of LGUs, and people think that communal toilets are a solution. Do they work? Are they really a solution? Especially when you're talking about open defecation. Are communal toilets are they effective?
Yes, definitely, Dondi. They are effective on the condition that you have put in place the proper mechanisms that people know who's supposed to be accountable at the end of the day if that septic tank gets full. More often, those communal toilets are put up by our government, local government agencies, if not the national government. And so that's where the confusion begins. If these communal facilities are not handed over and there's no clear accountability arrangements between the users of the toilet and the local government units that have put that in place, and that's where the problem begins. But really, it does work. It does help. And it's something that we really have to embrace and acknowledge that in some cases, the only best way for us to be able to provide sanitation facility for our communities is having a communal toilet. There are already, of course, other innovations like what Sir Frankie has mentioned, the City of Manila use of non-sewered container-based toilets, for example, the LUWAT. But that also entails somebody else, government in particular, local government in particular, orchestrating that whole arrangement between the households, the users, the ones that would be hauling the waste thereafter and bringing it to the treatment facilities. And that's not going to happen overnight, and that's not going to be something that a household can do on their own volition. It really entails, whenever we speak of communal toilets or even non-sewered toilet facilities, it really involves getting a whole bunch of people sitting around the table and agreeing on who's supposed to do what. So I think that's where we need to be putting more focus as well, and not only just on technologies often.
Elmira, yeah, maybe simple practices are best, no? But Elmira, one of the challenges with communal toilets is that it doesn't get counted as an improved sanitation system because by definition, shouldn't be one toilet per household.
No.
So
The
it can,
improve, it can be counted. We do understand there have been it depends on the setup of your communal toilets. There are communal septic tanks with separate toilets for each of the household, but they all drain to one communal septic tank. There are, of course, the usual standalone communal toilets, but yes, you're right. It's not going to be counted against uh, a basic sanitation service because the basic sanitation service at SDG level requires one household, one toilet, but it is an improved type of toilet. So that's the difference. The improved type of toilet refers to the technology, but when we talk about the service levels at SDG, which is the basic sanitation service level, it talks about now the ownership of the toilet, the type of technology that you're using. So that's where the difference is.
Elmira, we're running out of time. I have one question. Last week, there was a webinar organized by NEDA, and they had USEC Rowena Guerrero of DOST who shared various efforts and technologies our local scientists and entrepreneurs have undertaken to address problems in sanitation. So how can UNICEF help link these local solutions to the communities that need them most?
Wow. We have always been in touch with the Department of Health on looking out for new technologies that could support the different challenges that our communities are facing when it comes to sanitation. And for us in UNICEF, what we would be keen on investing on is looking at sanitation systems that would be useful for a particular population group in our communities, ones that doesn't have the kind of financing or budget that all the rest of our households would have, the ones that are really left behind, the ones that are in the geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas, because this is where our gap is. This is our last mile. If you would look at our demographics, the ones that doesn't have a toilet are really the poor households, the ones that are far from the poblacion or the main city centers. And so that entails a different kind of modality, different kind of technology and arrangements between different partners. And as UNICEF, we're always on the watch for this kind of technologies and mechanisms that can be put in place. That's as far as we can go. It's really just to really document those best practices and hand it over to government to support and advocate for its use. It's the least that we can do.
Well, Yusek Guerrero, I forgot to mention, is from DOST, not DOH. It's nice that Dick Pajarillo of water.org just posted a comment that if these technologies are offered on a commercial basis and in affordable packages, sanitation financing can come in, which is what the specialty of water.org is. Unfortunately, in our discussion last week, the problem was, the scientists are not businessmen, and their problem is how do they bring it to the market, right? So we'll have to find that's another webinar. So
yes, definitely.
So I just wanted to close this session. Unfortunately, Chris had left. I had a couple of difficult questions for him, but now he's not here to answer them. But I just wanted to close this session. I wanted to say thank you to our speakers. Chris, who's no longer here, Elmira Bakatan, Frankie, maraming salamat. I just want to close. There was this, I attended this meeting with the Israel Commercial Office the other day, and the meeting closed with this quotation from Rear Admiral Grace Hopper, and she said, she's a computer scientist, and she said, the most dangerous phrase in the language is, we've always done it this way. So we need to take risks to really address the problems in the water sector. I mean, Karanki's been in for 4 decades, and we're still talking about the same things. I've been at this in 2 decades, and I'm still seeing the slides I made 18 years ago being presented, and we need to. So, Elmira, thank you for the new slides. Thank you very much, and we're looking forward to the next session of this afternoon's webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
What a great discussion. I wish we had more time.
I agree.
Insights, yeah. Great insights from our panelists. Our water challenge is indeed far-reaching, but they also shared great ideas and initiatives to address the water and sanitation challenges. So I hope our dear participants are inspired to pursue solutions for their communities. And thank you, Dondi, for highlighting important points from our panelists. Our Q&A box is open for any additional questions. We'll try and have our panelists answer them directly while they are still here. So before we move on, we'll flash a few questions again on the screen for those who are on Zoom. There you go, to get your feedback on the session. So this will help us with our upcoming events. Thank you for those who responded already. I hope we'll have more. And while the poll is up, The Philippine Water Challenge is brought to you by USAID, PDRF, Maynilad, and Manila Water. And at this point, we also would like to thank our sponsors, Coca-Cola Foundation Philippines, Israel Embassy in the Philippines, Smart Communications, Kubo, and Idea Space. Thank you very much for supporting our program. Our poll is still ongoing. Thank you very much for those who responded very satisfied and satisfied. We will continue to do our best. Team, let me know if we're good to close. All right. Okay. So thank you very much for joining our poll. Now we go to our second part of the webinar, and we will be joined by 3 innovators from the Philippines and Israel to present creative technologies aimed to increase access to clean water. Our first presenter is Ms. Jenica Dizon. She is the country director for Waves for Water, an international nonprofit organization that aims to provide clean water to people who need it. Let's all welcome Ms. Jenica Dizon.
Hi, are you guys able to hear me?
Loud and clear, Jenica.
All right, thank you. Let me just share my screen quickly. Thank you again for having me. So it was really a great discussion a while ago about just the context that we work in, and I'll briefly share a few things about that, things that we've seen in the field. We're a grassroots organization that works, really on the ground. As you can see, I'm in one of our project locations right now in Brooks Point, Palawan, and I'm very much happy to be with you all to share about the work that Waves for Water does. Basically, the gist of what we do is just really to provide access to clean water to everybody who needs it. And I'll just share about how we do it as an organization that works with communities, the private sector, and LGUs on the ground. So we've spoken a lot about the SDGs. We're focusing on access to clean water, but I think all of us here knows that access to clean water is the building block for a host of all other sustainable development goals. We can help, reduce poverty, hunger, ensure overall health and well-being, make sure that kids are in school if they're not getting sick. Women and children are disproportionately affected by the water crisis, and having access to clean water will be able to open up a host of other opportunities to them. We speak about climate change in terms of water. There's either an abundance of it or a huge shortage of it in El Nino or in La Nina. So access to clean water is such a huge impact in making sure all these other SDGs are addressed. But still, it remains to be 1 in 3 people don't have access to clean water globally. In the Philippines, it's 1 in 10. And this is normally a situation we encounter when we work with communities on the ground. It's not even level 1 water supply. There is a host, but as you can see, they're heavily dependent on surface water sources. So this is an IP community in Nagtipunan, Quirino that we've worked with. And this is essentially the same water source, same stream that they depend on for all their needs, from domestic use, laundry, washing, bathing, to even drinking water. And because they also don't have proper sanitation on site, it's highly likely that, when they openly defecate, it all just goes down the same water source. So this is the context that we work with. Diarrhea is unfortunately a still leading cause of death in the country, and nobody should be dying of diarrhea anymore. It's easily preventable. We've spoken about all these threats, and we also know how complicated our current water regulatory scheme is. You have a host of non-government agencies working on something, and coordination is hard. And so this is the backdrop that, not just nonprofits, but also those who want to innovate are working with. And it's very challenging. We know what our water supply levels are. And at Waves for Water, we aim to address the gap really of people who are dependent. So really level 0, surface water sources or untreated groundwater. And, it takes a long time for them to go to level 3. And in the meantime, immediate impact needs to be created for us to address, immediate health challenges. Kids are getting sick. Adults aren't able to work because they're also sick. You have increasing medical bills. So it all piles up. And this is what we want to address immediately. And this is where we come in as Waves for Water. So the organization is actually founded by a pro surfer named John Rose. He happened to be surfing in Sumatra, Indonesia when the 2009 earthquake struck. He had a couple of filters with him, primarily for personal use, but he saw how it could be implemented and used in disaster response. And just then, and it was just that situation that led to how the organization grew. We've done projects in over 48 countries and have implemented over 150,000 clean water systems already. In the Philippines, unfortunately, it was also a disaster, Super Typhoon Haiyan, that led to Waves for Water setting up shop in the country. So the country office was established in 2013, and we like to make things fun. I mean, if you have a founder who's a pro surfer, we're a youth-run organization, and we just essentially want to promote doing what you love and helping along the way. We go on a lot of adventure trips, and also these trips, entail working with a lot of remote communities who don't have access to basic needs. So it's really a way to merge different passions, and I'll show this in some of the brands that we work with, that we're able to plug in more purpose to things that people are already passionate about doing. We also take a help the helpers approach. We ensure that we work with communities. We don't just, shove the technology in. We make sure that we work with them, we consult with them. They identify jointly that there is a need for access to clean water in their communities, and then we train the leaders. It's really them who knows best how to use the water filters. So we want to be able to train them in such a way that they're able to maximize it. Sorry, there's just a helicopter leaving. I'll try to speak over it. These are the solutions that we have. We offer clean water systems, so this is really the backbone of what we do as an organization. And then we do rainwater harvesting, and then complement the infrastructure with hygiene education. So this is the filter that we use. It's existing in the market. It's an existing technology, and what we've really found it useful for is that it doesn't need electricity. It's gravity fed, so they come in kits like this. I hope you guys can hear me. It comes in kits like this, and it's long lasting. It has 1 million gallon capacity. We distribute it in buckets like this. So this is actually a collaborative project that we do with a lot of private sector CSR programs. And then maintenance is really simple. I can show in a bit how it works. These are the sorry, let's see this real back. So what the filter is also able to do is it is able to so the filter just looks like this. That's a hollow fiber membrane inside, so similar to the technology of dialysis. At 0.1 micron absolute, you're able to remove all the bacteria causing diseases. So from protozoa, cysts, bring typhoid, cholera, these hosts of waterborne diseases are trapped inside the filter, and what comes out is essentially potable drinking water. I'll show in a bit how that works. These are the programs that we do. We do a lot of disaster response initiatives, needs-based, and also community development projects where we work with these are some of the photos that we've done of different
I think we lost Jenica.
Sorry, I think it's leaving now. It's left.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you for
Go
bearing
ahead.
with me. It is a really remote place, and we had to take that to get here. So these are some of the disaster response initiatives that we've done. These are the CSR projects, some of the companies that we've worked with. We also have a strong partnership with the military. We participated as a community relations partner. So we've participated, and they've been a huge support for logistics and for us to be able to reach the most remotest areas of the country, from the Babuyan Islands, Magulis in Batanes, and Tawi-Tawi, all the small pocket islands that are definitely off grid and are not immediately in the radar of a lot of bigger groups and organizations. These are some of the community development initiatives that we've done with a lot of our CSR partners, companies that we've worked with long term, such as Discovery Land Bank. These are Canva, H&M, and this is the education or wash training that we feel is also very important. So it's not just technology that we transfer, but we make sure that we do hygiene education activities to make people understand, the bigger picture of how everything is connected, how defecating in one water source or how having animals around the hand pump really affects their health, even if they don't see it immediately, or even if, nothing happens when they drink dirty water. Because of all of this, we've been able to reach over 56 provinces now and implement over 16,000 filters and build almost 70 rainwater catchment systems. These are some of the brands that we've worked with. And really, it's collaboration that we also want as a message to people. We want communication. We want to show the importance of communicating water issues well, really telling stories of people and issues on the ground, showing faces of people who, are deeply impacted by the clean water crisis. And in our first panel discussion, we mentioned that 1 in 10 people still don't have access to improved water resources. But that also means 9 out of 10 can help, and that means you and me. So I'd like everybody to, have cheers to clean water. I'll show you guys how the filters work. So the filters we distribute in bucket systems because it's communal, shared by different households, but they can also be attached to your Coke is a sponsor. So you can attach it to an empty Coca-Cola bottle. It has the same diameter. And then because it's gravity fed, you just really have to point down. So just take the cap off so you can see this is rainwater they've been collecting. And when rainwater comes, things get muddied a lot. It becomes more turbid, and it's as simple as pointing downwards, and then clean water comes out. So it's really simple to use, very intuitive, easy for people to understand how to set it up. And we just would like everybody to, cheers and have a drink to clean water. So thank you, everybody. That was just a quick demo of how it works, but I hope it gives insight to how different technologies, point of use filtration systems that you can use on the go, on hand, and implement in communities, either for disaster relief or for medium-term impact. 5 years is a long time already for hopefully communities have better infrastructure that may be decentralized but are less capital intensive. So thank you everyone again for having me and Waves for Water in this panel, and I'd be happy to answer any questions in the chat box or later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Jenica. We've worked with Waves for Water after Typhoon Haiyan before, and it's good to know that you continue to innovate and reach remote areas. Our Q&A box is open, so send in those questions for Jenica, and we will be responding to those questions later. Up next is a presentation from Fluence Corporation. Fluence Corp is an Israel-based company that is now leading the industry into the future by bringing high-quality, cost-effective, and low-footprint treatment solutions wherever they're needed. Here with us this afternoon is Mr. Gilad Yugel, Senior Product Manager and expert on membrane aerated biofilm reactor water treatment. Over to you, Gilad.
Thank you very much, Veronica, and thank you, everyone. I'm just going to share my presentation. So thank you for having me today. I hope I'm going to have easier conditions than before, so no helicopters here in Israel, but great job on finishing that presentation. So today I'm going to talk a little about leading the future in terms of water and wastewater treatment, which is what Fluence Corporation aspires to do. Just a short word about Fluence Corporation. So Fluence Corporation is a 350 people global organization. We have a local office and business in the Philippines, and are also present in 5 other continents. And what we provide is smart product solutions. So we are water experts, and we aspire to serve the medium market, the decentralized market, with smart product solutions for water and wastewater treatment. So I'll start with water because I'm not going to talk about water today, but this is just to make you familiar with. We have 40-foot containerized systems that can be easily deployed in remote areas, and they have multiple patents inside. The unit can treat both fresh, brackish, and seawater to provide the highest quality drinking water available. So again, these are automatically operated. They have minimal maintenance, very low energy requirements. And basically, it's the highest capacity of drinking water per container in the world. Our Neurabox Mega can provide 1,500 cubic meters per day of drinking water out of seawater, desal. So that's the desal side, but I'm a wastewater expert, and sanitation is in the core of today's discussion, also in the previous session. So I'm going to speak about wastewater. We at Fluence have developed the MABR, the membrane aerated biofilm reactor, and the MABR is the core of two product lines, Aspiral and Subre. I'll talk about both today, but the one that serves the decentralized market better is the Aspiral, the containerized MABR. And basically what it does is saves immensely on the energy that's needed to treat the wastewater. So there are different degrees and types of wastewater treatment, but in every type of wastewater treatment, you would need oxygen. So back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, probably also many plants today around the world still have surface aerators. These are very inefficient methods of introducing oxygen into the wastewater in order to treat it. But as the technology developed, we got into coarse bubble diffusers and then fine bubble diffusers. Nitrogen removal and phosphorus removal started emerging, and it was still, the method of transferring oxygen was still through a pipe or a filter or a membrane that delivers a bubble into the water. So if you imagine a bubble traveling from the bottom of the water basin or the wastewater basin upward, you would rely on that bubble to burst. You would rely on mass transfer, right? Gas from the bubble to the wastewater, and that has inherent inefficiencies. What MABR does is through a membrane, we introduce the oxygen in a molecular level. So think about little tiny O2 molecules traveling through a membrane wall into the wastewater itself. And that is the most efficient way of introducing oxygen into a wastewater treatment system. Won't go over the numbers, but you'll get the presentation anyway afterwards. So basically what we do is we take a double layered flat sheet membrane, we roll it into this sushi roll and deliver air through the inner part of the membrane, right? These blue arrows traveling through the white envelope. This whole array is dipped inside the wastewater. So there's air flowing inside the membrane envelope, not even touching the wastewater, right? Coming in from the blower and out to the atmosphere. But what actually draws that oxygen into the wastewater is the demand from the bugs, from the biofilm that grow on top of the membrane, right? So you have wastewater, right, on the outside of this membrane envelope, and you have air with oxygen on the inside. Wastewater, as we know, does not have any oxygen naturally inside it. Very, very, very low amount. So there's a demand by the bugs for oxygen, and that's what draws the oxygen, actually pulls the oxygen by diffusion from the inner part of the membrane to the wastewater, to the biofilm, essentially. So in wastewater treatment, not only organic matter removal, but also biological, nutrients is important. MABR is able to remove both organic matter, total nitrogen, and phosphorus at one stage because of its special structure. So with that inherent advantage inside MABR, it's a very, very good solution for a high degree of wastewater treatment and reuse with very low energy, but also with very, very, very low operation. Okay, when people say membrane, you usually imagine these very advanced systems to filter out water or wastewater, but we aren't filtering out anything. Basically, we are passing air through the membrane and placing it inside a wastewater treatment basin, and it can stay there for up to 20 years, which we guarantee 15 out of. So it's a very reliable technology, a very robust design, and it can be operated by completely non-skilled operators. We've just finished commissioning a system in the USA in an animal refugee center. So people over there treat animals, right? They aren't wastewater treatment plant operators, but still they're able to do routine operation of the system, which is very low and, as I said, provides a very high effluent quality. So we pack MABR into various solutions, from on-site small treatment systems. The micro can treat up to 5 cubic meters per day of wastewater to irrigation quality. We have the Aspiral product line, which has 20 and 40 foot containers that can also treat to irrigation water quality. A larger plant that can also be based on containers. This can reach up to 1,500 cubic meters per day. And larger concrete-based plants, which can reach up to 50,000 or more cubic meters per day, depending on the sizing. We can also sell these independently to be integrated into existing solutions, and I have a case study exactly on that later. So a step back, sort of justifying why we develop these type of products. You would think that a traditional centralized sewage treatment plant, most of the investment would be in this, right? In the huge concrete paths and basins and roads and, you know, equipment and whatever. But as a matter of fact, that is only 1/3 of the CapEx. 2/3 of the CapEx of the investment is actually on the piping. So piping and pumping, that was mentioned also earlier, for centralized plants is an immense amount, 2/3 of the CapEx that you have to lay down in the ground before you even start operating the plant. What we do at Fluence is we decentralize. We break it down into bite-sized pieces. We lower the energy required for pumping and the money required for piping to minimum based on gravity, of course. And by breaking down that centralized way of planning into decentralized, we're able to significantly save on piping costs of around 90%, and enable to invest on time, which is very important for communities, for municipalities with limited investment capabilities. And the big plus, right, with introducing wastewater reuse is that you can reuse on site. Think about a centralized plant, right? You would need that purple piping to go back the whole way to the community that just sent the wastewater down a 20, 40, 100 kilometer pipe. So you have a double saving on piping, and when you want to reuse the wastewater to irrigation quality, it's a no-brainer to go with the decentralized solution. MABR is a globally validated technology. It was voted back in 2018 as one of the top 10 water tech inventions of the decade. We cooperate with multiple international consultants and consortiums, and especially in Southeast Asia, we are extremely active. This is our business in the Philippines. We already have 8 MABR and 2 water treatment NIROBOX plants sold. Among them, 5 are up and running. So you can see different, very nice locations around the country. As I said, we have a local team, and we are growing and aspiring to provide clean water for irrigation and clean drinking water to multiple communities around the Philippines. We've also had a very large success in China. not far from the Philippines. So we deployed over 200 MABR-based systems of various sizes around the country. Many among them are remotely monitored. So decentralization, or having a decentralized plant, also means that you have to know what's happening, right? You won't just throw it out there and let it maybe work or maybe not. So we have remote control systems that integrate into a central control console, which can be then tapped into by the operator or by the utility and find out what's happening in each of his multiple plants. This is our latest treatment plant in Cambodia, which is serving 100,000 people. It's the first wastewater treatment plant, I'd say advanced wastewater treatment plant in the country, which actually treats nutrients and brings the wastewater to tertiary quality. We're very excited about this project. It's a large-scale MABR project, a somewhat centralized system, but you can see that it is located on a very, very critical point right by the outfall to the ocean and by a resort. So it was a tightly designed project and just commissioned and providing very high-quality wastewater treatment to 100,000 people. We won't really go into the case studies here for the Philippines, but you'll get the presentation later so you can look for yourselves. We have projects in West Grove, Cavite, in Nueva Vista in the Philippines. This is a concrete project in Mayan Tzvi in Israel, our first concrete retrofit. This is a small container. I put this just so you have an idea sort of how it looks like on ground. So this is a plant we established in Spain. You can see the very, very low footprint, and this is 50 cubic meters per day of treatment, which can be equivalent to 300, 500 people easily. This is a plant in very decentralized plant in the US, in Oregon. You can see our MABR modules here inside the basin, and this is completely underground in a very nice coastal van park where people bring in their vans and stay for a few days and then go away. So it's a very decentralized application. And this is for a landscape irrigation. So the water quality is, as I said, very high. So we have over 280 global references and growing. This is by far the highest amount of MABR installations if you look at the other two competitors by scale. And with that, I would encourage you to enter our website, fluencecorp.com, and mail me directly with any questions. And I'd love to have your questions on the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilad. A revolutionary improvement in aerobic wastewater treatment. Looking forward to seeing these kinds of solutions in our Philippine Water Challenge. Again, our Q&A box is open if you have any questions for Gilad. Now, last but not the least, we have Mr. Stephen Larsha, CEO of Hiraya Water, a smart water management company that helps water utilities develop markets, reduce non-revenue water, and improve service through artificial intelligence. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Veron. Thank you for that introduction. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you to Maynilad, Manila Water, PDRF, Kubo, Idea Space, and of course, USAID for organizing this. Again, I'm Stephen from Hiraya Water, the country's pioneer in smart water management. When I got the invitation, I got the invitation from Ms. Carla Grino of the USAID Safe Water Project. She told me to share our story, the story of Hiraya Water, how we created, how we built this technology company that is Hiraya Water. So, but before that, let me spend a few minutes to introduce what we're doing. Again, we are Hiraya Water, and our vision really is to make smart water management universally accessible. So that, because what we want is that water utilities, big or small, communities, no matter the size of the income, in countries, especially the developing markets, can access smart water management solutions to help them save on their precious resource, which is water, and improve the service they provide their customers. In terms of our team we're composed of a diverse group of engineers and scientists. Our expertise spans across hydraulics, fluid dynamics, data analytics, product development, electromechanical systems, and water supply operations. In fact, water supply operations are some of our members have been from Maynilad, from Manila Water, and other water utilities in the Philippines. We are currently funded by the Department of Science and Technology. So Yusek Guevara was talking about us in the NEDA discussion a few days ago. And we're also funded by the United States Agency for International Development under the Development Innovation Ventures. We have recently won several international competitions, the most recent of which is the Asian Development Bank's challenge. It's a challenge on improving remote monitoring for water utilities. So they run a competition for smart water management technologies out there. So out of several entries from the US, from France, from India, from Singapore, and other parts of Asia, fortunately, we were selected as the winner of this challenge. In terms of our impact, so of course we monitor different metrics, impact metrics, and all of those are under the Clean Water and Sanitation (SDG) Sustainable Development Goals. Our target by 2023 is in fact to recover a volume of water that's enough to supply for 1 million people. That's using a per capita consumption of 100 liters per day. And how we are able to do that is through our flagship product called RTAP. So what is RTAP? So RTAP is an intelligent supply and pressure management system that helps water utilities, no matter the size, reduce their NRW and improve their operational expenses and improve their service levels, and which results to better revenue on the part of the water utilities and better service on the part of the communities that these water utilities serve. RTAP uses artificial intelligence. It's based on our patented system and method for controlling water and water distribution systems. And this patented technology helps water utilities, the assets of water utilities, become more efficient, accurately predict and respond to the ever-changing state of their water networks, so that their pumps, their valves, their tanks, all of them become more efficient in maximizing the limited water supply in the water network. Here are the benefits that we provide our current clients. So we help them reduce their NRW, we help them reduce their power consumption, we help them give better service to their customers, which in turn results to better build volume on their part. So that's what we have done in several of the water utilities here in the Philippines. And, it's just artificial intelligence and a dose of partnership with these water utilities that are key ingredients in making RTAP work. So that's Hiraya Water. That's RTAP and the impact that we've accomplished so far. But to tell our story, to share my story, let me ask you with this question. Have you encountered this matrix, the knowledge matrix? So probably a lot of you or a few of you have encountered this matrix. This was distilled from the view of the late Donald Rumsfeld, who is the former Secretary of Defense of the United States. So in this matrix, you have 4 quadrants. The x-axis are the perceived knowledge. So what we think we know, And the y-axis is the real state of knowledge, what we actually know, in truth. So we might not know the things that we don't know. We might know the things that we know. We might know the things that we don't know. No? So the first quadrant covers the things that we know. We know. So the example of this is I know that I know how to ride a bike. No? So that's a good example of the first quadrant. The second quadrant are the things that we do not realize that we know, but we know. No? So I didn't realize that I knew how to sing, no, until I sang, and it went pretty good. No? The third quadrant is or are the things that we know that we do not know. No? So I know for a fact that I don't know how to play the piano. No? So that's a thing that I know that I do not know how to do. No? And the fourth quadrant, and this is the most dangerous, are the things that we do not know, no? Or sheer utter ignorance, no? Simply ignorance. This fourth quadrant, no, this fourth quadrant right here, that has been the recurring theme of our story in Hiraya Water. Let me start with the first episode, or the 0th episode, or the start, where we were still fresh and just starting. So that was me in college. No? As part of our program in civil engineering, yung water was one of the key topics in civil engineering, and that was the topic that I found really most interesting in college. No? And so when I graduated, I joined a water company called Maynilad. And that was the start of my awakening, my team's awakening to the challenges of the water sector. You know, non-revenue water, for example, and generally inefficiency in the water supply operations. Our experiences in Maynilad greatly helped us, actually, in developing our solution for RTAP, for Hiraya Water, which is a smart water management solution. We found that the area of smart water management was new back then, and that available solutions were only accessible to the developing markets, or to the developed markets. And in the Philippines, only Maynilad and Manila Water and the big water districts can afford and can access these types of solutions. So we thought about building our own, building a smart water management solution that was designed for developing markets. Well, in the Philippines, here in the Philippines, you might agree, as we have heard from the previous session, there are a lot of problems in the water sector in the Philippines. Too many to solve. And if we could solve the water problems in the Philippines, we thought we could solve any problem in the world. So basically, the Philippines is a large sandbox of innovation, for innovation, to test and iterate solutions, test, iterate, all our solutions. So in 2014, we applied that Idea Space competition. So Idea Space is the most popular technology startup competition in the Philippines, arguably. Idea Space is being headed by, of course, the head of PDRF also, Mr. Butch Mailey. At that time, I remember Sir Frankie. Sir Frankie was one of the speakers in the first session. He was one of the judges here in Idea Space. Back then, we had a plan to win Idea Space. Of course, there were a lot of deliverables to complete. It was difficult. It was it required so much effort and time. But we knew what needs to be done. So we knew what needs to be done. So we were at the third quadrant. We knew that we need to do something, to change something, and so we built a plan, and we followed the plan. We followed the plan to the dot, and we slept and meditate our way through the competition. Well, kidding. I mean, of course, we worked our asses off until we were exhausted, and the plan worked. We won in 2014 the Idea Space Technology Startup Competition. Out of I think 1,000 entries in Idea Space at that time, we were one of the 10 winners of Idea Space. That was us, no, on the news, TV, print, radio, no? And so the real work began. We knew back then, no, that we needed help in the areas of marketing, sales strategy, fundraising, generally running a business, running a startup, a technology startup. We were the five of us, no, we were all engineers, no, in the team, and you know, see Mr. Dondi Alikpala before in the previous session touch upon this. No? How would an engineer, a scientist, know how to build a business, right? So that we knew that for a fact, no. And the 4-month incubation of Idea Space helped us address those gaps in the team. We got to be educated in the Asian Institute of Management. We got to be mentored by best local and international mentors. We got to hear the great minds such as Maria Ressa, RJ David, no, who really inspired us. No? And we got to socialize with different startups from all over the world. No? And once in a while, Mr. Manny Pangilinan would visit our pitch sessions, no? Pitch practice sessions. And at that point, after 4 months of incubation, that was the end of our happy moments with our incubator Idea Space, end of our experimenting without risks, no? And the start of the real work, no? The start of our startup journey. So enter episode 1, developing a good water tech. No? With all enthusiasm, I resigned from Maynilad. No? I had the opportunity to stay in Maynilad and build my career, but I resigned, no? To focus on growing Hiraya Water. So I thought I had been trained by the best, no, in Idea Space. Everything would be peanuts from now on. And so I took the leap of faith and resigned. But months passed, and constantly we were improving the product. We were struggling actually to improve the product. And this presented a whole bunch of problems altogether. Bigger problems than what we have encountered in our incubation. We had slow progress. We had a buggy product. We were really near bankruptcy. And so we thought about developing this technology. We thought it was going to be easy, no? But certainly, no, the knowledge quadrant, we did not know what we did not know. No? But we persevered, no? No matter how hard, sleepless nights, and we did not stop continuously improving the tech. We also went back to our professor in college. We sought help on issues on pipe water networks, fluid dynamics, hydraulics. No? And more importantly, we started collaborating with some water districts, no, to test our product and to iterate based on their feedback. No? So we traveled to different locations and talked to different water utilities, water districts, and we kept improving continuously. No? So we iterated and iterated and iterated. We in fact used to think that we could manufacture our own hardware, but that was one of the things that we didn't know that we can do. But over the years, we have built a superior smart water management solution, all because we worked with our target customers, the water districts, and it paid off. Now we are confident, and hopefully we're in the first quadrant, no, to say that no other smart water management solution out there can claim compatibility to the water district's existing water infrastructure in the Philippines. No other smart water management solution out there can claim that they have facilitated the access of these water districts to smart water management more than Hiraya Water. No? And we continued then our commitment to continue. We're in the first quadrant, no, to say that no other smart water management solution out there can claim. Then came compatibility. Episode 2. Sales is hard. So following the success stories with our water district partners in the past, we have experienced the benefits of using our product. No? Our water utility clients experience the benefits. Because of that, we would often hear from our past clients, your product will sell itself. No? So that was really music to our ears. So at the time, we thought the same. Our product has undeniable significant benefit for water utilities. So of course, it will definitely, surely sell itself, right? And then I remember this one meeting with Mr. Butch Maley, the president of PDRF and Idea Space. Well, this was not the actual photo, but a representation of that meeting, though. And Butch was there. He asked me, Stephen, how many is in your sales team? I said confidently, just me. Our batting average is 100%. We got 2 out of 2, so it's 100%. So, well, 100% because it's 2 out of 2. But that 2 out of 2, and we thought that meant actually anything. 100% batting average, but it was just 2 out of 2. 2 sales out of 2 attempts. So Butch said, that can't be done. No, you can't be a one-man team for sales. No. You need a sales team, but I insisted, no, we don't. Our product will sell itself according to our customers. I just needed to talk to each general manager of each water district in the Philippines, and they would not resist, and the deals would start flowing. And so, fast forward, we all know what happened. Butch was right. Our efforts on presenting at conferences, attending network events in water, visiting water districts, we did all these efforts, but these were not enough. Sales in itself is complicated, and sales in the water industry is 100 times more complicated, 100 times more. It was a failure all over again, but we again persevered, and we found our way to crack this nut called sales, or sales in the water industry, and we didn't stop there. So another problem solved. We were starting to get sales more and more, but just when we were gaining the traction in sales, enter the pandemic. Episode 3, the COVID-19 pandemic. I don't think I need to show any photos. You know the picture, you know the story of how each one of us have been affected by this pandemic. How the story of how the businesses were affected by this pandemic. In our case, prior to the pandemic, the deals were starting to flow, and we were excited back then. And then March 15, 2020 came, and the pandemic erupted, and everyone was on lockdown. Everything paused, and you know what else paused? Our projects. Projects which we already had budget for, allotted by the water districts the past year. Those projects were practically canceled. We were just really fortunate that we had 2 projects that started right before the pandemic, and that kept us floating during these times. But of course, again, as with the other episodes, we responded to this realization. We also got the help of USAID, as always, who gave us a sales consultant to figure out our gaps in sales. So we got this consultant who helped us traverse this sales jungle of water utilities. PhilDev, UNDP, Australian Aid also took their part and helped us in these trying times. Right now, fortunately, sales is back. It's starting to pick up again. Hopefully, hopefully. And yes, before I end, there's this recurring theme that we saw in our story. The recurring theme that we didn't know what we didn't know. So, but everyone starts with that, not knowing what they didn't know. But what is important is that we quickly realized what we did not know, and we responded with our commitment to continuous improvement. And so why we have developed this tech to be compatible to infrastructure of the water utilities in the Philippines, why we have impacted a lot of communities with our solution, why we have saved millions of water, and why we continue to help water industry become more efficient, is because we believe that everyone starts with not knowing what they do not know. But it's how you respond to these unknowns that would really matter. And why we're so sure about the future, why we keep on going to to scale our solution to reach more water utilities in the Philippines and hopefully outside this, because no matter how many things we don't know right now, we respond to these unknowns with commitment to continuous improvement. And that had made all the difference with Hiraya Water. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Inspiring startup story there. Thank you for sharing. And good to know how technology is bridging the gap and bringing efficiency in delivering and improving our water services. Thank you to all our speakers. Sadly, we are really running out of time, so we can only accommodate one question each for our speaker, and let's get to it immediately. I hope Jenica is still here with us. And if
Yes,
great,
I'm
thank
still
you.
here.
Yes, thank you. Okay, you're up first. So my question to you is what particular challenges are faced by women in the water crisis, and what role can women play in the solutions? And secondly, how can we make the access to safe and clean water more inclusive? Over to you, Jenica.
Thank you very much. Yeah, for that question. No, as you can see, the water sector is, I think, still heavily male. It's very male dominated. I mean, you can see just in the panel of speakers we have, it's only us two women in this roster of speakers here in this session. And I think it speaks a lot about how women are also underrepresented in terms of water management. And there's a lot of studies that have been conducted that if women are involved at the community level, if women leaders are involved in water management, even for their own water sources in their community, because when you think about it, it's women who are actually the ones who are tasked with fetching water for their homes, aside from children. It's them who are seen as nurturers. So it's them who knows how water is used for a host of other uses, from cooking, bathing their kids, to really seeing how also water impacts the, unsafe water impacts their kids and their families' lives. So women play a huge role in terms of being able to contribute in this way because of their knowledge and practical experience. And so they need to be they need to be given more representation in that sense. And I think it's really good that, there's us working in that field to give light. And also when you think about how it's also women who menstruate, wash, water, sanitation, hygiene should be taken as a whole. And that also doesn't get talked about a lot. We at Waves for Water, we also distribute reusable pads, but we also have to take into consideration sometimes that reusable pads might be good for the environment, but they're not necessarily easy for people to wash because they have limited water supply. So sometimes we've resorted to giving disposable pads. So just things like that, we menstruate, we need gender sensitive toilets, we need access to hygiene materials. There's a lot of issues that are definitely just for women. And what happens to young women, just where women start to menstruate, if they don't have gender sensitive toilets, if they don't have the materials that will help address menstruation, then they'll end up skipping school. So it's a lot of grassroots problem that you see in the ground, but also has an impact to the whole future of an individual, a family, and a community. A lot of this I've seen on the, we also help try to address at
I think we lost Jenica.
Waves for Water. And to answer the
you're breaking up, Jenica.
We do is really try to address the gap between the immediate need of people drinking to water infrastructure that's sometimes not, it's capital intensive, and also the community.
I think we lost Jenica. Awesome answers. If I may copy the comment of my team there. Thank you, Jenica. Great insights there. And I hope that we will get and attract more women participants to our challenge. So next is to Mr. Yogel. You're there, yes, okay. So yeah, we have, as you cited in your presentation, we already have MABRs here in the Philippines. Would like to know how they are performing. And secondly, are there any conditions unique to the Philippines that would be more conducive to innovations in water treatment? Over to you, Yoga.
Okay, thank you. So the first question, yes, the plants are up and running in the Philippines and are fully compliant with the DAO 2016 wastewater discharge regulations. And I invite you all to contact our local team. I'll give their details in the chat in a moment. But to the broader question, as an Israeli, I think we have many things in common, innovative-wise, with the Philippine people, because we are both people that cherish innovation and technology and developments. And I guess the root of it all is courage. Because when you imply, back in 2016, when you legislate or regulate such a very advanced wastewater treatment regulation in a country which had, I guess, much lower quality of wastewater treatment, and the whole process, and also the drinking water industry in the Philippines that went through before the wastewater regulations back in 2016. So that takes a great deal of courage and foreseeing, which I think is common to both of our people. So I think that's the root of it all: the courage to accept technology and to take, to drive regulation in order to advance those types of that technology and those types of solutions. So another thing that I think is very good and supportive in the Philippines is, as I said, the regulatory structure, but more the innovation acceptance, the wide acceptance of innovation in the utilities. So we work with Manila Water, obviously, and with the various local consultants, and the open-mindedness is something that is very common to all of the people that we speak to in the Philippines. It comes with a great deal of critical thinking, which as an Israeli, I can say that this is very common also for Israel. But the combination of the courage and the critical thinking and the open to innovation, that is what drives innovation in technology in this market, and is what is going to drive that wastewater treatment market in the Philippines to the future.
Thank you, Gilad. Courage, open-mindedness, critical thinking, and embracing technology. Well noted. And last but not the least, again, we have a question for Stephen. How ready is the Philippines for AI? And what are the biggest challenges to implementing smart water initiatives?
Okay, thank you for that question. Yes, that's a valid question. There are actually several problems with the compatibility of smart water management in the infrastructure that we see here in the Philippines. Water sources are not that abundant, and water sources, groundwater, are usually in a water utility, in a water district, are interconnected. That makes it even harder for AI and smart water management to operate these kinds of water networks. Another is communication infrastructure. So communication infrastructure, meaning the use of internet. Our mobile data is fortunately it's picking up. But we've had several years and decades with a not so reliable communication. And another is the sophistication of existing infrastructure in the water districts. For example, the use of motorized valves. You wouldn't see motorized valves in, I would bet, 90% of the water districts in the Philippines. Only a few have these motorized valves. So how would you intelligently control these water networks? And so these problems are really hard problems to crack, to solve. But these problems have been really the opportunity of Hiraya, to address these gaps, that are preventing smart water management for being a widely accepted or widely used solution technology in the Philippines and elsewhere in other developing markets. So we, for example, the use of in a water utility, should a water utility have no motorized valves, we have a system in RTAP where our system sends text messages, instructions to operators on how to operate and manipulate their valves. So that's one way to work around this limitation of infrastructure sophistication in the water use in the Philippines. So yeah, short answer is a lot of problems, but those problems have been really the opportunity for Hiraya Water to come in.
And it also will require collaboration with other industries, right? Particularly such as telecommunications. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you in advance to PLDT and Smart, who are, I believe, sponsors of this session.
Okay.
And
All
thank
right.
you in advance also to the water utilities who will contact us in the future.
Good luck. All right. So thank you very much to all our panelists. At this point, we will be closing this session, and we will proceed to a very important announcement, how you can join the challenge. And that is the message for all of you, our dear participants. So we are flashing. Before that, we are flashing a few questions on your screen to get your feedback on this session. So there you go. Okay, so hit your buttons now and respond to our feedback poll. Thank you very much for all your responses. Very good, thank you. Let's give it a few more seconds. Your feedback will allow us to improve more our succeeding events. Thank you. Okay, I think we're done. So let me, okay, so now thank you for those who responded. And now to walk us through the competition details, I'm sure you're very excited to know more about this. Let me turn you over to Ms. Trina Aspuria, Development Programs and Innovation Manager of PDRF. Over to you, Trina.
Thanks, Veron. So I'll make this quick because we're running out of time. So what are the challenge themes? The Philippine Water Challenge responds to two themes that represent the most pressing challenges in the Philippines in terms of water and sanitation. So theme 1 can focus on effective, low-cost, and efficient methods or technologies for water consumption. This can include water-saving devices and water filtration technologies, among others. And theme 2 can focus on innovative sanitation solutions. It can include toilet products, latrine collection methods, and waste treatment technology that are low cost and easy to maintain by communities. So what are we looking for? We are looking for social enterprises, tech solutions, process models, prototypes that are appropriate with the challenge themes mentioned. We are also looking for demonstration of how the innovation can contribute to improve access to water and sanitation among water-stressed communities. Entries are also encouraged to demonstrate how responsive it is to marginalized groups such as low-income women, indigenous people, and persons with disabilities. Lastly, entries must have a proof of concept piloted at a small scale level and evaluated minimum of 6 months to a year. So who can participate? We are looking for the following groups and people. This is open to all Filipinos aged 18 and above. Unfortunately, large water companies are ineligible to join, and that is because we are having them as our mentors. Which brings us now to the prizes. Exciting. So we will have 5 winners for this challenge. We will have 1 grand prize winner to receive the following: 250,000 pesos partnership fund, 250,000 peso worth of incubation package, and an access to the investors platform. We will also have 2 first prize winners, 1 for each theme, which will receive the following: 150,000 peso partnership fund, 10 mentorship sessions, and an access to the investors fund. And lastly, we'll also have 2 winners for the second prize, which will receive 100,000 peso partnership fund and 5 mentorship sessions. But wait, there's more. If you join all the webinars and register for the challenge, you become eligible to join a special class on innovation from our partners Kubo Innovation Hub and Idea Space.
Also, after that class, we will be opening slots. So these are limited for a one-on-one mentorship with Kubo and Idea Space mentors, where you can get tips on how to pitch your solutions to our review committee. So you should watch out for that. So here are the dates to watch out for. Don't forget to check more details on this challenge on the website indicated and follow us on social media. That's all from my end. We will play a 1-minute video on how to join. Stay safe, everyone.
Innovative solutions to our country's water and sanitation problems? Are you looking for an opportunity to promote your solutions to a wider audience and potential investors? Then join the Philippine Water Challenge. Here's how you do it. To apply or to nominate someone, go to pdrf.org/Philippine Water Challenge. Accomplish the application template and submit all the necessary information about your solution on or before September 30th, 2021. Once all entries are in, a screening committee will shortlist the best applications based on our evaluation criteria. The top entries shall be sent to the Board of Jurors represented by these organizations. They will judge the entries based on these criteria. Lastly, the winners will showcase their solutions during the award ceremony. The Philippine Water Challenge is here to support ideas and solutions that contribute to the country's goal of universal access to safely managed water supply and sanitation services by 2030. So join now at pdrf.org/Philippine Water Challenge, and together, let us help you expand your solutions to those underserved and unserved Filipinos, one household at a time.
Thanks. Back to you, Veron.
Thank you, Trina. We look forward to your entries, our dear participants. So visit the website to register. That's www.pdrf.org/Philippine Water Challenge. To formally close our event, may we hear from Ms. Alma Porciuncula, Chief of Party for USAID Safe Water, for her closing remarks. Ma'am. Do we have Ms. Alma?
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Alma has lost her connectivity. She is
Oh.
in Tagaytay right now. But I'll read out her closing remarks na lang.
Go ahead, Ms. Jazz.
All right. So big thank you to our organizers, host, moderator, panelists, reactors, presenters, and to all of you who participated in this webinar. We believe in innovations as catalysts for change, especially homegrown ideas born out of personal experiences living the challenges of inadequate water supply and sanitation services. We look forward to discovering scalable solutions that will bring us close to our SDG target of universal coverage and for water supply and sanitation services by 2030. This target is even more daunting now with government resources being channeled to COVID response. Certainly, government alone cannot achieve the targets, and so we need everyone to contribute ideas, resources, and efforts. We are planning to do more webinars before the Challenge Award in November. We hope to see you then too. Most of all, we look forward to the entries for the challenge. Maraming salamat and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Jazz. And that's a wrap on our first webinar. We hope to hear from you soon. You may access the presentations by watching the recording that will be available on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Follow us on social media for updates on the next webinar. But before we officially part ways, let us all watch this video on how PDRF has grown and made a difference in many lives for over 10 years by providing sustainable, impactful, and innovative programs anchored on the whole of society approach. Our anniversary offering to our dear donors and sponsors and participants. Thank you. Good day to all of you.
It began with a storm. In 2009, Typhoon Ondoy devastated the nation, destroying countless lives and causing vast damage to infrastructure. This was just the latest in the line of recent catastrophes. While the Philippines has never been a stranger to disaster, it was time to improve how we dealt with it. So when the national government called for aid, the private sector answered. In 2010, the leaders of the largest corporations and non-governmental organizations joined forces to form the Philippine Disaster Recovery Foundation, or PDRF. PDRF brings together its members who are able to set aside commercial interests to collaborate on delivering aid and building resilience during crises. In 2015, a few years and disasters later, PDRF was officially renamed as the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation to highlight all pillars of disaster risk reduction and management: preparedness, mitigation, response, and rehabilitation and recovery. PDRF's training program, Prep Lab, was created as part of its commitment to invest more in capacity building, promoting resilience building through business continuity management, disaster risk reduction, and climate change adaptation for the PDRF network. PDRF also established the 8 cluster system, composed of member companies geared towards proper coordination and collaboration during disasters. The cluster system is interoperable with the Philippine government and international humanitarian organizations to improve efficiency and effectiveness of humanitarian response to crises. Notably, PDRF is also a member of the United Nations Humanitarian Country Team, a strategic and operational decision-making and oversight body for humanitarian action. Through private sector engagement and innovative DRRM strategies, programs, and technologies, PDRF envisions a disaster-resilient Philippines with empowered communities and businesses. A whole decade since it was founded, we celebrate PDRF's many achievements as we look forward to greater things ahead. PDRF is all about collaboration, and over the years, it has forged partnerships with many key government agencies, institutions, and international organizations. Its expertise and experience in private sector engagement during disasters have paved the way for PDRF to become integral to the global network of humanitarian and development organizations. In 2016, during the World Humanitarian Summit, PDRF helped launch the Connecting Business Initiative, or CBI, with PDRF as its model network. CBI and PDRF have been working closely in supporting and strengthening the private sector response efforts before, during, and after emergency. In the same year, the MSME Resilience Core Group was established with PDRF as one of its founding members. This public-private partnership has key actors from government institutions and business associations working together for MSME development and disaster resilience. In 2017, PDRF and the Office of Civil Defense co-developed the Public Service Continuity Planning Program to train government entities in drafting and implementing service continuity plans to ensure continuous delivery of critical operations during disruptions. The program, further supported by New Zealand Aid and the USAID Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance, conducts training activities which now adopt an online mode with the help of the PSCP Guidebook published in 2020 and PDRF's digital learning platform, iAdapt. In April 2018, anticipating the worst-case scenario in the National Capital Region, a magnitude 7.2 earthquake, or the big one, PDRF launched its Emergency Operations Center, the first private sector-led national emergency operations center in the world. Located in Clark, Pampanga, it serves as the private sector's main coordination hub for monitoring typhoons, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, pandemics, armed conflicts, and relief efforts during disruptions. Beyond disaster response efforts, the Operations Center also conducts preparedness activities for member companies and partner institutions. Its central feature, the Disaster Information Management System, employs PDRF's very own HANDA, or Hazard and Disaster Analysis for Business Resilience, which enables member companies to assess and reduce risk prior to potential disruptions. 2020 was a game changer for PDRF, with both the Philippines and the globe being plunged into a plethora of crises unlike any that had been seen before. As usual, when the going got tough, PDRF and its network quickly stepped up. While the COVID-19 pandemic wrought havoc on all of society, PDRF rallied the resources, logistics, and coordination capabilities of the private sector to continue strengthening the resilience of communities all over the country. From distributing food packs and personal protective equipment to delivering digital solutions for education and business, from testing and tracing COVID-19 cases to supporting the government in vaccinating the country, the PDRF network's response to the pandemic helps the hardest hit by the crisis to bounce forward to the new normal. Each project responded to a specific need identified during the early stages of the pandemic, and PDRF's close work with the government and private sector continues to address all aspects of the fight against COVID-19. 10 years strong, and PDRF shows no signs of slowing down. From piloting innovations to working to become one of the first ISO-certified nonprofits in the world, PDRF continues to help a forever changing world. The organization is more committed to developing the disaster management capabilities of its member companies, partner communities, and institutions by providing sustainable, impactful, and innovative programs anchored on the whole of society approach. PDRF believes that it is only when we work together that we can weather all the world's storms. This is the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, building a stronger and more resilient Philippines.
Congratulations, PDRF, on your 10th anniversary.
Thank you, Miss Jazz.